All right, welcome everybody. It's good to have you guys here tonight. In our last session, we began our focus on keeping the team on track as we looked for ways to, one, inspire, motivate, and influence our team members and stakeholders, and number two, to appraise team performance against key performance indicators. This week, we're going to be looking at two additional competencies: how to address and remove impediments, obstacles, and blockers, and how to manage conflict. So we're going to get started first with our first topic here, which is address and remove impediments, obstacles, and blockers. And as Chris mentioned, he'll be coming back here shortly to cover our other topic this evening. So throughout the project, there will be impediments, obstacles, or constraints, of course, that slow down or block the team's progress toward the project's objectives. This interference can range from minor and, quite frankly, to catastrophic. The team, well, and on that note, we've seen a catastrophic project issue happen in our situation today with Afghanistan, unfortunately. So there's a big example of catastrophic. The team may be affected anywhere from simply being inconvenienced to being outright stopped. Any hindrance on the project team or on any member of the team will reduce productivity and the ability for the project to meet its objectives. Any actions the project manager can take to address and remove the conditions or causes restricting the team's productivity will help the team and the project to produce value. Tonight's topic on addressing and removing impediments, obstacles, and blockers addresses various enablers from the exam content outline, or what you know as the ECO. These enablers are: determine critical impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team, prioritize those critical impediments, obstacles, and blockers, implement solutions to remove the impediments, obstacles, and blockers, and then reassess continually to ensure that these impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team are being addressed. So in regard to deliverables and tools, you'll see here listed several or the relevant enablers, that's the related tools and so forth, the deliverables and tools associated with these enablers. I've gone ahead and highlighted some of the areas that will be mentioned or covered in more detail in this session. The remainder of the items, which are only a couple, they'll probably be covered in more detail in some other sections of the course. So projects can be blocked for many reasons. Project team members can encounter many obstacles that obstruct or slow down their efforts. The type of impediments can vary greatly based on the industry, stakeholders, the project and business environment, and the project itself. An impediment is simply something that prevents the team from achieving its objectives. The terms can be synonymous, but generally speaking, impediments reference situations, conditions, and actions that slow down or hinder progress. For example, the team can't come to a decision on a location for saving project documentation. Obstacles refer to barriers that should be able to be removed, avoided, or overcome with some effort or a strategy. For example, the construction crew is unable to arrive at the work site before the permits are signed. And blockers refer to events or conditions that cause stoppages in the work or any further advancement. For example, the company has halted the use of any product in a certain firm until a new contract is signed. The number and weight of impediments may vary throughout the project. The variation may even fluctuate throughout the day. The team identifies the impediments and they bring them to the attention of others on the team. And the project manager assists in facilitating the evaluation of the impediments and how they could or could not impact the team's ability to deliver value. Based on those judgments, the team figures out how to address the impediments. Often, the resolution or occasionally the research is performed by the project manager to enable the team to focus on more meaningful, productive tasks. Over time, the obstacles may become more cumbersome or less cumbersome. The blockage may become unblocked. But due to the dynamic nature of projects, the impediments, obstacles, and blockers, as well as any effort undertaken by you and the team to address them, must be reassessed continually throughout the project. This also includes recognizing new impediments, such as those that emerged because of the actions and efforts used to address other impediments. Impediments and obstacles may block work or planned efforts from moving forward. As a result, the product backlog, scheduled activities, and other lists of work items must be assessed in reference to those hindrances. Evaluating the impediments against the pending work forces the team and the business stakeholders to assess the backlogged work in terms of value and priority. Backlog assessment and refinement can also explore alternatives to overcome or avoid the risk, or in some instances, remove the work item or blockage altogether. One practice or tool to assist with uncovering or determining the impediments impacting the team in a timely manner is a daily stand-up meeting. Also known as the daily scrum, the daily stand-up is a short 15-minute meeting in which the complete team gets together for a quick status update while standing in a circle. Ideally, the stand-up meeting should be conducted at the start of working hours, and the presence of all team members involved in the sprints is mandatory. During the meeting, these questions are answered. What has been done since the last meeting? What needs to be done before the next meeting? And what does anyone need any help with? When project teams track impediments as they're raised, addressed, and resolved, then communication and proper oversight are increased. There are various ways to track impediments. For example, impediment task boards can be as simple as sticky notes denoting impediments, the potential causes, responsibilities, and the status posted on a whiteboard or a wall near the project team's co-location, or it can be a sophisticated software application that captures greater detail and has communication features. In whatever format works best for the team, the board must convey the status and efforts associated with the identified impediments. Impediments may be due to or as a result of project risks or issues. Risks that are raised during the daily stand-up meetings, iteration reviews, and other meetings, as well as everyday conversations, are added to the risk list. A rigorous review of project risks ensure that risks are identified and documented. Newly identified and existing risks on the project risk list must be updated based on the current knowledge and situation. For the exam, think of a status meeting as team meetings in which the project manager can perform risk reviews and risk audits. Assessing and managing risk is discussed in more detail in the lesson titled Doing the Work. We talked a good bit about servant leaders in part one, as you might recall. Project managers serving as servant leaders aim to clear an unobstructed path for the project team so they may contribute and deliver. Project managers want to optimize the workplace to be free of obstacles and other impediments. This extends from the physical team space to the shielding the team from non-value activities. Removing distraction, randomization, and other confusion enables the project team to be more effective and efficient. Project managers can take on most of the burden of addressing and removing impediments so that the team can do their best work on the project to achieve its desired objectives. Impediments emerge from the internal project team, but also from external sources. Here are a few guidelines to work with when you're working with external stakeholders. Discuss with the team to assess and evaluate the impediment. Review efforts previously attempted or considered. Discuss impact and solutions. Relay the impediment to the external source. Establish a single point of contact within the team, typically the project manager or person with the most subject matter knowledge, and shield the rest of the team as appropriate to focus on other work. Create an action plan and a schedule, follow up and communicate per your agreements, and then document the resolution and the lessons learned for future. And then lastly, as we conclude this topic, let's review some guidelines for prioritizing impediments, obstacles, and blockers. First, you want to define the categories or levels of prioritization appropriate for your team, project, and/or organization. Specific risk categories include, but are not limited to, external, internal, technical, commercial, and unforeseeable. You're going to want to redefine these levels as needed. Next, anchor the priority levels with real examples. Otherwise, priority levels may be subjective and time can be wasted on issues that could be put to true high priority, high impact issues. Clarify the new and still open impediments. Review the impact or potential impact to the team and to the project objectives. This is important in order to get buy-in and appropriate attention to the higher priority issues. Assign a priority to each impediment as a team or a selected subgroup based on connection to the impediment. Use any technique suitable for the team, such as fist to 5, where participants give a priority level from 0, which is a fist, to 5, which is a full hand. T-shirt sizes. This is where participants repurpose the T-shirt sizing estimation to the priorities. Unique naming. This is where the team designs their own unique naming conventions for scales that work for their needs. Or planning poker, where participants repurpose the estimating technique for priorities. This is also referred to as scrum poker. Software teams can use this tool to pinpoint realistic and accurate time frames, strategically plan the team's workflow, and build a consensus among the cross-functional team members. If you're not familiar with planning poker or scrum poker, I encourage you to revisit this estimating technique and to understand how it applies to addressing impediments, obstacles, and blockers. And then lastly, our last 3 items here, rounding the corner with 3 additional guidelines. We want to communicate the priority levels in an easily accessible area, such as a software tool or an information radiator. This information radiator can be posted on a wall or communal message board. And intensive use of informational radiators has the benefit of conveying 2 messages in addition to the information itself. It conveys that the team has nothing to hide from its visitors, such as customers and stakeholders, and the team has nothing to hide from itself. The team openly acknowledges and confronts problems. And then our last 2, begin creating action plans for the highest priority impediments, and then reassess continually, as we mentioned previously, to ensure that those impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team are indeed being addressed. So this concludes the keeping the team on the track topic called Address and Remove Impediments, Obstacles, and Blockers. At this point, I'd like to open it up and see if there's any question or comment. And I'd also like to ask if anyone has an example where they've used a particular tool or technique that has worked especially well for your projects. So if you've got something you'd like to ask or you can contribute that would help the team here today, please come off mute. Well, Chris, indeed, it was a very short session.
Yeah, that is a short half of it. So, all right. Well, guys, one last take before we move to the next one is any questions that you have for Cindy or myself before we move on? All right. Very well, then. All right, Cindy, I'm going to take over.
Okay, great.
Let's see. I should be sharing. I don't think I'm sharing that. Let's see. All right. Can you see the topic D, manage conflict?
Yeah, we sure can.
I can see it.
Okay, great. Let me adjust a couple things. Make this larger. There you go. All right, guys. So as it says, we are going to talk next about managing conflict. Conflict is all around us. I mean, let's think about it. If you work in a team and you work on a project, you have a variety of stakeholders, they're bound to be conflict. Conflicts in projects is inevitable. It's natural. And if you think about it, it can be a positive. It could be a positive benefit to the project and to the outcomes if you manage the conflict correctly and you cultivate the conflict. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we mean by cultivate. All right, so from enablers, you'll see the exam content outline section for each one of those, but we have interpret the source and stage of the conflict, analyze the context for the conflict, evaluate, recommend, reconcile, and track the effectiveness of the things that you're doing, identify the root cause of the misunderstanding so that you can kind of nip it in the bud, if you'll say, And then lastly, investigate potential misunderstandings. So you explore to get everybody together on the same page. All right, I added a graphic on this slide to give you what the RACI matrix looks like, just in case you haven't seen one. But these are deliverables and tools, right, that are relevant to the enablers that we just talked about. They're addressed in this topic. Some of these might be covered in detail in other sections of the course because it's not all just cookie cutter and you work through that. So you'll see under deliverables, updated working agreement is the first one. So we're talking about resolving conflict, right? So one of the outputs is going to be a working agreement when we get through things and help us get through things and how we do that. And also we may update the RACI matrix. So the RACI matrix, it's a responsibility assignment matrix, and it describes the participation by various roles in completing tasks or deliverables for a project or just a process in general. And RACI is an acronym derived from 4 key responsibilities that are most typically used, and it is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. It's used to clarify, define roles and responsibilities, and also cross-functional or departmental projects and different processes. Now, so those are the deliverables, or AKA the outputs of this section, right? The tools, we're going to have conflict management theory, change management theory, conflict management models, and we'll talk about some of those, conflict resolution strategies, talk about that. Emotional intelligence is an important tool that we all try to embrace, right, in our daily lives, but it's also critical in being a project manager. Active listening, we've talked about this before, that's critical, and then showing empathy to others. Expressing empathy is an important characteristic of a good project manager. All right, so let's talk the project manager's role. So managing conflict, it's a responsibility of all stakeholders involved with the project. The direction and the handling of the conflict, though, is heavily influenced by you, the project manager. Your interpersonal team skills, they play a major role in assuring that the results of the positive aspect of conflict rather than the negative aspect of conflict that comes out. And skills such as empathy, we already talked about that, emotional intelligence are primary examples of what we need. If you're working in an agile project, the project manager may assist in facilitating the conflict resolution session, or the team is empowered to resolve conflicts as they see fit. Now, if you are in the servant leader model, a project manager can assist in the removal of the impediments or the sources of the conflict to support the team's overall performance. All right. Let's jump into causes of conflict. So conflict arises in most groups and working situation, and some of the causes may include, number one, competition. So competition amongst the team, the project team itself. Differences in objectives and values and perceptions. You know, everybody brings something special to the project, a unique skill, and you'll find that their differences may come out once they start working closely to each other. We also have disagreements about role requirements, work activities, individual approaches, people's interpretation of how they should proceed and move forward. And then lastly, communication breakdowns. You know, it says active listening, we all interpret things differently that we hear. So a project manager should be aware of certain characteristics of conflict that will help them effectively handle conflicts when they arise. Like we said, conflict is natural, and it enforces the need for exploring alternatives when you hit that section. It is a team aspect, and openness about the situation or opinions can help to resolve conflicts. And while resolving complex problems, the focus should be on the issues and not the individuals, on the present situation and not the past. I think that's good advice in life, right? It should be on the issue and not the individuals themselves. All right, conflict management. Conflict management is the application of one or more strategies for dealing with disagreements that may be detrimental to team performance. Effective conflict management can lead to improved understanding, performance, and productivity. Remember, we said it could actually be a benefit, right, if you navigate through it and you cultivate it, and that's what we're talking about here. Conversely, ineffective or non-existent conflict management can lead to destructive behavior, animosity, poor performance, and reduced productivity, all of which will threaten successful completion of the project deliverables. There are certain conflict resolution methods, and the need to follow a particular model includes the intensity and importance of the conflict, meaning you will adjust your course of action based off of what's in front of you. The time given to resolve the conflict is another variable, if you will, that determines how you proceed, and the positions of the conflicting parties and the motivations to resolve the conflicts on a short or long-term basis. A lot of different variables that you have to consider when you are trying to determine how to proceed and how to navigate through or around something. All right, change management theory. So any changes that we encounter, whether small like rescheduling changes or it's a large change like a major organizational change, all of these can cause conflict, and managing these changes in projects and organizations may require different strategies depending on the circumstances, the people involved, the timing, etc. You might find the organizational change management models such as Lewin McKenzie's 7S model or Kotter's theory. These could be useful tools to handling organizational change. Now let's take a little quick jump into this. The McKinsey 7S model refers to a tool that analyzes a company's organizational design. The goal of this model is to depict how effectiveness can be achieved in an organization through the interaction of 7 key elements. You have structure, strategy, skill, system, shared values, style, and staff. Those are the 7 S's of the model. The focus of the McKinsey 7S model lies in the interconnectedness of these elements that are categorized by either a soft S or a hard S, implying that a domino effect exists when changing one element in order to maintain an effective balance. Placing the shared values in the center reflects the crucial nature of the impact of changes and the value on all other elements. And so you'll see that on the right. I added that graphic just to give you a picture of what it looks like. You can Google this and learn more about it and get more details if you want. And then the one on the left, the multicolored step down, if you will, that is the John Kotter, or Kotter's theory. John Kotter was his name, and he did this in 1996. It's not that old. He was a Harvard Business School professor and a renowned change expert, and he wrote this book called Leading Change back in 1996, and he introduced this 8-step model of change, which he developed on the basis of research of 100 organizations that were all going through some type of change. He suggested for change to be successful, and this is a key part, 75% of a company's management needs to buy into the change. In other words, you have to really work hard on that first step, increase urgency, and you have to spend significant time and energy building the urgency before moving on to the next steps. So number one is the hardest, the biggest, the most important step in order to make the Kotter theories work. All right, it's just as important to have a robust theory and approach to change management when you're supporting the business goals and the needs of the larger organization as it is within other practice areas of professional project management. Embracing change as a strategy can help organizations balance investment and risk, help them become more flexible, and ensure that they reap the benefits of any project to ensure maximum return on investment. Thus, change management is an essential ingredient in using project management as a vehicle for delivering high-level organizational strategy. Change management is an essential organizational capability and a significant professional practice in its own right. A more extended discussion can be found in the PMI publication, Managing Change in Organizations. It's a practice guide. So, key thing on this slide, I think, is really just knowing some of the key attributes of these two theories, these change management theories. And if you know that, I wouldn't imagine you'd probably get any deeper than that on the quiz itself. All right, so this is, we also talked about this on the front, right? Some of the tools is conflict management approaches. And this is all from the PMBOK guide. So the PMBOK guide 6th edition that we're looking at, right? That's what we're studying with this group of courses. There are 5 basic approaches for handling conflicts. Each is effective in different circumstances. So let's walk through that. So the first one up is withdraw or avoid. It doesn't sound like an approach, right? But it is actual approach, and it may be the most beneficial way to approach something. So you retreat from the actual or potential conflict situation. So you don't face it head on. You retreat, or you postpone the issue to be better prepared or to be resolved by others. Maybe you're not the best to go out into the middle of the fight, if you will, the conflict. It's better left to be resolved another time or by somebody else altogether. So that's number 1, withdraw and avoid. Number 2 is smooth and accommodate. You have emphasizing areas of agreement rather than areas of difference. And then conceding your position to the needs of others to maintain harmony in relationships. So you're really looking for balance and harmony on this one, helping everybody get along. The third one is compromise and reconcile, searching for solutions that bring some degree of satisfaction to all parties. So you look for this compromise, right? These commonalities. Temporarily or partially resolving the conflict through compromise. All right, and then you get a little bit harder. We have force/direct. Is pursuing your viewpoint at the expense of others, offering only win-lose situations, usually enforced through a power position to resolve an emergency. All right, so you think about that. Force and direct is like if the ship is sinking, the captain tells everybody to drop what you're doing and get to the lifeboats, right? I mean, that is a kind of a direct order. When things are breaking down, when there's chaos, people look to a single voice to give them direction and what to do next. This is kind of that situation that if you're faced in a conflict that you feel is in that type of realm, then maybe a force direct approach would be best. And then the last one is collaborate and problem solve, incorporating multiple viewpoints and insights from differing perspectives, enabling cooperative attitudes and open dialogue to reach consensus and commitment. This one may take more time, more work, more open dialogue, but the end result is everybody is helping to be a part of the solution, and their ideas and thoughts are heard, and they're contributing to the overall outcome. All right. And then our last slide. I told you it was a shorter one tonight, right? So our last slide is team charter. And one technique that supports a productive and collaborative project environment is documenting a team charter. Now, you've probably heard and read and learned about project charter, right? This is the first document that you do to kick off a project to get it going, right? To generate some interest in a project before it even starts. That's a project charter. This is a team charter, something completely different. A team charter is defined as a document that records the team values. So individual values are listed out. Everybody contributes. Agreements and operating guidelines, as well as establishing clear expectations regarding acceptable behavior by project team members. If you're like me, you've been through a bunch of off-site meetings, and this is probably something that you've experienced where people put, let's talk about what is allowable, what is our guideline for this meeting, right? And you list the things, the do's and the don'ts, what's acceptable and what's out of bounds to talk about within a meeting. And you just set these group norms fairly quickly. Everybody contributes and everybody comes to an agreement. So having this working agreement for the team that articulates what are the team values, how the team works together, and how they make the decisions, it enables the team to have ground rules and aid in the collegial conflict resolution. So you have something to fall back on when conflict ensues. You can go back and say, let's all go back and reflect on our team charter. Let's go back and reread our team charter. Maybe we need to update it, right? The format and the detail of a team charter varies, but it's based on the expectations and the culture of the team, because it doesn't have to be a specific format. In the context of managing conflict, it's important to update the working agreements like the team charter and other team documents to provide guidance on how the team should move forward beyond that point after you've resolved that conflict that you have. And actually, like I said, that's the last slide, and that takes us to the end right here. So I'll go ahead and pause. What questions do we have, either about managing conflict or what we learned about in the first section as well? Cindy, it is an easier topic. It's a lot easier than a lot of the other stuff we've been doing. But this is a quiet group tonight, isn't it?
Yes. But I mean, frankly, most of us are probably pretty experienced in some degree, and we've dealt with conflict a good bit. So hopefully we've been putting a lot of this to work in our roles that we have today or have had in the past. And so this should be a good confirmation, right?
Chris, it's Steve Gord. I do have a question from, I guess, a couple of slides ago, the different techniques that you showed us, whether you could, evade the project, evade the issue or things like that. The way I've been reading some of these quizzes, they'll sort of ask you to pick the best one out of all of them. That's what seems to be a bunch of the questions we get. It's like, they're all ways to do it, but pick the best one. And I mean, would you say that any one of these is better than the other? Like, for example, I would pick like collaborate, problem solve is the best one if I had to pick one as a quiz question. But I wanted to see if you agree with that, or because withdrawal seems to be kind of like sometimes you'd rather not do that, but I guess there are scenarios where you would. Yeah,
Steve, I hate when they do that, because there's not always one right way to approach something, right? I mean, that's the whole concept that the PMBOK guide tries to teach us here, is that we should have these tools in our tool belt, and we can pull them out and use them back out and try a different one if we don't see one working. But there's not a right answer to your question, really. It depends on the situation and what you're good at naturally. I mean, if you want to be forceful and direct, and if you're not comfortable doing so, then you're probably not going to pull it off as well as somebody that is, right? The withdraw, avoid, some people have a problem with that because they feel they've been taught their whole life to run towards the fire, not away from a fire, right? And they may not be able to do that very well. I get what you're saying, is that collaborate and problem solve, that sounds like a happy, everybody work together, let's roll up our sleeves, take extra time, and we'll do this together, right? And that, I would say, 9 times out of 10 makes most sense. But yeah, I guess you just got to read the situation. And hopefully the quiz will give you key indicators that point you in a specific direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I remember seeing some of those.
Yeah, I had one the other day that was something like, the guy says, okay, we agree that we're kind of $1,000 different. Let's go ahead and put that aside and go forward with the agreement. So it came up to be smooth and accommodate, because we're kind of emphasizing the things that we agree on, and then moving forward, we agree that's going to be an issue, but we're going to overlook that and go into whatever it is. So it was kind of gave those hints at what they were kind of pushing you to.
Good. Hopefully all the questions are like that. Not ambiguous.
Not so much.
So what are the questions? Let's just open it up. What are questions you have about anything, right? Anything PMP related?
Hey, Chris, just going back to the question for a moment. I pulled out handy dandy Rita. Rita's
Rita Mulcahy, yes.
Yeah. So on page 328, if you have a Rita book, they have a trick of the trade And he says, when you have questions on the exam relating to conflict management, make sure you think who generally has responsibility for and authority over the situation described in the question, what resolution of this problem would best serve the customer's interests, and what is the urgency with which I need to resolve the conflict? Would it be best to let everyone cool down, or is this something that must be resolved immediately? What would happen if you didn't get involved versus involving yourself? And then it just goes on to kind of give some examples around, like, for example, we talked about withdrawal, which is the avoidance. It says, with this technique, the parties retreat or postpone a decision on a problem. Dealing with problems is a PMI-ism. Therefore, withdrawal is not usually the best choice for resolving conflict, though there may be situations where it's necessary.
What page is that on?
Page 328.
328?
Uh-huh.
It might vary on your edition, right? What edition do you have?
10th.
6.
Yeah, and I'm in the 10th. So it may be similar, but yeah. Got the 6th.
I have the other one, the Andy one, and I think I actually answered this question wrong because I said something, I forgot what, and basically what they emphasized on that one was that, no, you're the project manager, so you're the one that is responsible for all of it. So I was like, okay. It's me. Everything is me. So I was like, I got it.
Yeah. I think the important thing to do is to make sure you read it carefully so they set up the situation and not always think that the politically correct answer is the right one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, the PMBOK guide, PMI, the exam, everything is usually steered towards the PM, the project manager, is the one ultimately responsible to deliver all the requirements at the end of the project. It falls on your shoulders. And if you fall back on that as a kind of a guiding light, it usually keeps you going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can think of, and I do think what they were saying in Rita's book was she was saying that withdrawal or avoidance is generally something, that's not going to be your first choice or your best choice in terms of the exam questions. But I can tell you, one example of where you would withdraw is if violence is involved, right? If you're co-located and someone starts to threaten you, that right then and there should be real quick. It's time to get out of the room. You withdraw from that situation, right?
You don't jump in?
No.
Get your licks in there?
No. Project's not that important.
Okay.
That'd be funny. When you tell the cops, it's like, well, Rita said it was me.
That's right.
I had to.
Oh, gosh.
What else? All right. If there's no other questions, we promised early. I think we over-delivered on early. We didn't even hit the halfway mark. We don't even have to take a break. So remember this. This is the one that ended short, so when the ones that go long, you remember it all balances out in the end. But all right, guys, well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and the last 3 courses and then that closing the closing session. And good luck on your exam. I wish you the best. I hope everybody passes it on the first time. Like I said, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So good luck.
Thank you so much.
All right, Cindy. Yeah, thank you. All right, take care.
Bye now.
Goodbye. Goodbye.